So in today's video, we're going to be discussing the difference between a body release pattern and more of a hands and arms release pattern in your golf swing. So as you'll have seen there, the more hands and arms release pattern look like my right arm, so for me my trail arm was passing my left a little bit more. There was more forearm rotation and a little change in terms of the wrist, so the wrist angle going from more flexion to extension this way through impact. Whereas the body release, it's not like there wasn't any hands involved there, but it looked a bit more dominated with my body, and you'll have seen the handle of the golf club disappear a little bit more inward around my body, more on an arc, whereas the hands release, it would almost look like the club was pointing down the target line a little bit more. Now, I guess the hands release was more typical back in the day. We saw a lot more of this. And a big reason for this is it was taught that we were trying to get in the takeaway position and pre-impact, and we call this position before we hit the golf ball P6, position 6, we were taught that the toe of the golf club should point more up in the air. So in the takeaway, we're trying to get the toe straight up, the leading edge vertical. We're trying to get to the same position there. Now, if we actually really did dominate with our body, it'd be very hard to close the club face. So we'll be hitting it with that club face still aiming more out to the right of the target. So when you had that style, you had to see that there was a little bit more hand and arm action through the golf ball. So from a downline camera, we'd almost see the end of the club here pointing back at the camera behind me. So we're starting to see that right arm passing the left through impact. And it's not that we couldn't hit good shots from there, but it does rely on more timing. So I'd say with the majority of modern day elite golfers, we see a club face position that allows the golfer to use their body a little bit more in that release. And again, it's not that the hands aren't involved. The main thing the hands are doing in a modern release is down cocking. So they have cocked up, created an angle here, they're down cocking, but there is some forearm rotation and the wrist does change from flexion to extension through the golf ball. But the driving force, the engine for that release would be what the body is starting to do here, dominate. And the benefit of this is if we're starting to use those big muscles, perhaps we can gain some consistency. We can definitely slow down. We call it the rate of closure. So it's how quickly the toe of the golf club is passing the heel. Whereas if the club face is rotating more gradually, that would be a slower, more passive release position, much slower rate of closure. What I'm going to share with you today is how do we achieve that? So I mentioned that the old-fashioned one would have the toe more up in the air. Well, what do we see with the more modern players is they tend to get the club face more at the angle of their spine. So more matching spine angle in the takeaway and pre-impact. But to achieve that, I have got a different wrist angle. So the drill that we're going to do, if we're trying to gain more of a body style release pattern, is we're just going to put a T-peg in the glove. So we're just going to have it so it's poking out of my glove that way. Okay, so I've just put it where the Velcro would be. And my feel here is going to be into impact. I can start to get that T-peg pointing a little bit more down. So the back of my lead wrist, my glove logo here is starting to point down towards the golf ball a little bit earlier. Now you may prefer to focus on the trail wrist. That would be my right hand. That would feel like my right hand palm was a little bit more on top or facing downwards towards the ground, and that's absolutely fine as well. So that would be the sensation, and you can see what that's done to that club face position rather than here where the T-peg is pointing almost straight out away from me, or an excessively open face where the T-peg is pointing way up towards the sky. So we're trying to get it to point more down. Now to achieve that at the start of the downswing, you know, what's the feel in this bit is what most golfers would then ask me. So if this was our position, and you can see there the T-peg is starting to point up towards the corner here, is we're trying to get this sensation. So it's almost for me that my fingertips are moving more behind my wrist. If you imagine my hands here are wipers on the window, so windscreen wipers. So we're trying to feel like our fingertips move more behind us towards the wall behind us this way. Because as I come down into impact, now start to see where that wrist is pointing, where that T-peg is pointing, more down to the ground. That means I can start to use my body, and I'm going to demonstrate this. So if I actually had the club face in that old school position where the toe is more up and the T-peg is pointing more out in front of me, and I really dominate my release with my body, where do you think it's going to go? Okay, lost a bit of balance, but rotating my body well, the ball's gone, for me as a right-hander, way out to the right of the target there. So from that position, if I had that old school position with the toe more up, what would I have to do? I'd have to use some more hands and arms. So from this position, there we go, that felt pretty good. Yeah, I hit a nice neutral little draw, hit the line, and I achieved it, but I felt like I had to chase my right hand, my trail hand a little bit more over my left, using a bit more forearm rotation. Whereas in the modern release, getting that club face pointing a little bit more down, matching my spine angle, glove logo or T-peg more down, I can start to dominate. I've hit that a little left. But I can start to dominate more with my body, okay, turning through the golf ball. So if you're trying to achieve this, if you are trying to get that body style release and you're struggling, you need to look at your wrist angles and club face position in the downswing. Okay, so feeling that wiper drill that your fingertips are going behind, almost pointing towards 2 or 3 p.m. or 10 past, quarter past if you like on the clock face. That sensation, they're moving behind you, and then maybe we're assessing where our hand is before we hit the golf ball. And I do a lot where we get into this position, check that club face, and turn and hit from there. And it would be a good idea for you to actually even exaggerate that movement. So let's try and get that club face really pointing more down, the glove pointing more down. Now I really have to dominate with my body, otherwise this ball's going to go way left. So from that position, really exaggerating, almost like a Dustin Johnson type of position, club pointing more down, I've really got to dominate with that body. So it's a great feel to not, and it has gone a bit left, but to stop the ball going way left, I feel like I have to really dominate with my body, very passive with my hands and arms through impact. Now, there's a few things you can check there. I would check that your grip isn't excessively weak if you've got that club face open. So a weak grip would be almost that we start to see the lead thumb pointing more down, maybe the trail as well, or even more of the top of the trail hand on top, so twisted almost towards the target this way. That would be a weaker style grip. I would check that you don't have a weaker grip. Make sure you've got those 2 to 3 knuckles showing on that lead hand, because that's going to make it easier to achieve those wrist angles. And I would definitely do a lot of drills where we stop at the top, feeling that flat lead wrist. And if we're going to get any sensation, it's that my fingertips move further behind my wrist, almost like I'm moving those wipers towards 2 or 3 p.m. And that starts to close that club face a little bit earlier. A lot of golfers go, well, that's a closed face. That isn't. It's still open relative to the target line, so it's still closing through impact. It is just less open than it is there. There's only one other pitfall that we have to watch out for. Not technical, but an issue I see. So I sometimes get golfers where we've really improved their wrist angles, and they can, at slow swings, show me that they've got the club face much more under control through those better wrists. But we start to see when they add power into it, the face is still open. And why? It tends to be they're losing posture. So they've got good wrist angles, which would achieve a good club face, but their posture has done this into impact. They've early extended, stood up. So we're going to be from there, fingertips behind the knuckles, into pre-impact. I feel like that T-peg is pointing more down to the ground. Now I can start to really dominate with my body rotation through the golf ball. It really feels like I come and collect the golf ball. So let's do that without stopping. A little half swing and then build it up, just to finish with. So again, really felt body dominated. Got my handle moving a lot more inward to the left on the way through. That's what I really want to start to feel. Definitely something to do in practice before you take it to the course. Into this position. I'm going to go more 3/4. And let's finish with one full swing. Rehearse what the wrist angles are doing. I'd encourage you to look at it on video just to see what the wrist is doing here, what the club face or wrist are doing pre-impact. Trying to get that club face more matching your spine angle if you're trying to create more of this body style release. So I hope that gives you some understanding of what could be considered a complex area, whether we're using our body or our hands. It really doesn't need to be. I demonstrated this with an iron. I have done some videos about the difference on the release from an iron to a driver, so I will put a link here rather than discussing it in today's video. Make sure you click on that and check it out. If you have got any questions, put them below, or videos you'd like me to film, and make sure you subscribe to my channel to never miss any more content, at least 2 instructional videos a week. I'll see you guys soon.